second silliest thing that I can think of. Looks like we're off, by the way.
Yep.
The first silliest would be Handler's Ice Palace.
So, yeah, that sounds like a pain.
So in this mode, we give our runners free boots because boots are overpowered, allow you to traverse the overworld very easily. Green pendant in Desert Palace, by the way. Because we allow the use of major glitches, which, or on the overworld, of course, hence the name, which allows you to clip into a lot of out-of-bound places. Now, it's very slow to do this without boots, so anyone who would find it would be at a great advantage, which is why we just solve that problem by handing it out. Here you can see one of the very common opening routes of overworld glitches, which is checking Kylie Island and then going into Sahashla, since you don't need bombs to open this wall when you have the boots.
We did see Glan take a small detour to the Lake Hylia shop to buy 10 bombs when he was checking that island, though, which will be good to have when he goes over to Kakariko, Death Mountain, wherever he wants, because there are a lot of walls you can't just bonk into, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a very smart move, because otherwise you would have to farm the Bonk Rock right next to the Oracle on the north side of Kakariko, or as we see ObscureLifeForm doing here, probably the Grove. He'll probably pick up a few bombs. Also, interesting thing to note about Glan is that he does like to open with Death Mountain instead of Kakariko, where the bombs would be very important for, say, Paradox Cave. We'll see if that's going to be a thing today.
Yeah, it's going to be the Bonk Rock checks first, and then I'd assume that he'd circle up and check the items in Lost Woods before going anywhere else.
Yep. We find the flippers in the Bonk Rocks, which is an entirely useless item, except for Swamp Palace. So if Swamp Palace is required at all for anything, then you need the flippers. Also, in the early game, it's very inconvenient to get, because there's a few places where we rely on executing things easier without flippers, because water splashes you back where you started.
On the other hand, having them means that you don't need to clip on the Zora Ledge, for example. And there's a couple other places.
Yep,
It's necessarily faster to get to. Sorry?
Yeah, an early flipper does, in fact, help very much with that. And on that note, what you're completely right about is that unless you have the flippers, you have to choose between getting Zora or getting the ledge, because otherwise it's very slow.
Right. Also, continuing the Swamp Palace starter pack, we did see a hook shot in that chicken hut on ObscureLifeForm side. Glan's probably going to see that before long himself, being in Kakariko, but...
There's the Moon Pearl. Yeah, there's nothing too bad about this seed just yet, although, as you did mention, the Swamp Palace starter kit is starting to crop up. I almost expect to see Mirror very close by at this point.
I mean, if we're getting both Mirror and Pearl 5 minutes into Overworld glitches, that's perfectly fine by me.
Oh yeah, that's an absolutely nuts start. I want to say you want to find Mirror in exactly the chest that you open after the chest you open Moonbow, right? Not one moment sooner, because that might have like bad implications, and not one moment later, because you want to route your Moonbow with Mirror.
Also, yes, to answer your chat, ObscureLifeForm is using a Phoenix Wright sprite. It evolves in fun ways once Mail is picked up.
Please tell me at some point it becomes Miles Edgeworth.
More or less, once you get to Red.
Awesome. So an interesting thing to note here is that Glan is doing north to south Kakariko, ObscureLifeForm doing south to north Kakariko, which of course you loot Kakariko. But ObscureLifeForm probably plans to chain this with an immediate Death Mountain ascent, and Glan is going to go into Desert off of it.
Yeah, I usually hear people say that the front of Desert is more or less just an extension of Kakariko and Overworld glitches, because you'll just clip right from the Maze Race game right over to it. We're seeing Death Mountain instead as a bit of a divergence, putting that off. We'll see when ObscureLifeForm goes back to that, if at all, or...
Those were the silver arrows, by the way, on the Agate Ledge, so we're not going to see those being collected today.
Yeah, I don't recall there being any other circumstances in Overworld glitches that would force an Aghanim kill. So.
It's not in a logic to leave Death Mountain without the mirror or the moon pearl in the Dark World. Oh, by the way, quick intermission. ObscureLifeForm doing an upwards teleport here from the screen next to the Bunk Rock screen, which puts him on Death Mountain. He unwraps the camera and enters the Old Man Cave. So we are now on Death Mountain. This is what we call the Death Mountain Ascent. And there's cash in Palestinians. So, in terms of Aghanim, yes, you can use a sequence break to leave Death Mountain in the Dark World, but it's fairly slow and there's not much you can do off of it. But if it does wind up being one of those seeds where you're forced into an Aghanim kill in logic, a simple bottle or just some select buffering can get around that, unless there's an item in the check ledge. Yes, as far as Desert goes, it's essentially a cave with two chests in Overworld glitches. Much like, you know, Skull Woods used to be in No Major Glitches, where you would do the front every time because it just has value. That one has fallen out of favor recently because Skull Woods has become a little bit more balanced, or should I say random. But it's very common to see that Desert is a follow-up play to Kakariko, yes. One of the opening routes revolves around trying to find a fire source before you have to hit Kakariko and then Desert, just so that you can execute the Land Molars if Desert Palace is a crystal.
Or maybe if Land Molars has an item, which I don't believe is the case here. I think we saw 2 items.
Well, it does have an item in the form of Green Pendant.
Okay, yes, that's actually completely accurate in this case.
It looks like ObscureLifeForm is skipping the hint in Spectacle Rock Cave, and now we see a clip called Turtle Rock Climb. So what ObscureLifeForm did was teleport downwards in order to get on that weird cliff, and then did half circle back motions to struggle up, and now he's on top of East Death Mountain. Oh, and there's the fire source that I mentioned. So if you were to open Death Mountain here, you could in fact go straight to Land Molars when you first enter Desert, and well, ObscureLifeForm hasn't been in Desert yet, so it should be interesting to see if he eventually winds up there, and if that Green Pendant is any item that is required. Could be huge.
Yeah, definitely a big find if that turns out to be necessary, but looks like he's a little stuck trying to get back onto the main mountain here.
Oh no, he saves and quits too. So you can do the same clip that he did in order to get onto the floating island. You just have to struggle your way out of that water. Now, he hasn't gotten flippers yet, which would have helped him a little bit there. But instead, he opts to go for another Hera clip, which is a very common clip that we use. Just basically jump off the bottom of Death Mountain to wrap around the screen, and then you can enter Hera at the top to reset your camera, and then you're at the top. An average Overworld Glitches runner will enter Hera about 6 to 7 times a seed.
How many times do they dance up the side of the mountain like this, you think, on average?
I want to say about 2. One of the routing things that you can do, and I don't see enough people doing, is that instead of doing the T-Rock climb, you just transition right from the Harris screen, and then clip out of bounds there, which saves a little bit of time and lets you go directly to mirror and minimal okay, by the way, lets you go directly to the floating island. It's faster and it's just overall safer as well. The one situation I can think of where it's like faster than anything is when you do it in the Dark World.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen many people do that clip directly to Floating Island you mentioned, but I've obviously not seen every race of this tournament so far, and I'm not intimately familiar with every runner and their habits. But we do have Glan setting up the water walk out of Ice Frog Cave, which at the very least will let him get around Lake Hylia a little faster, whether he goes to Hobo, directly to King's Oro, wherever he wants.
Unfortunately, those flippers mean that as soon as he enters the shallow water around the whirlpool here, he's going to get disarmed, so he is taking this opportunity to go to Hobo instead. Very conscious choice.
Yeah, you can actually avoid the shallow water here, so it's a bit easier. Just don't bonk.
Also, maybe he's not even planning to go to Zora at this point, because you could, well, he is, apparently, but you could instead go onto Death Mountain, go to East Death Mountain, and then clip down to the Waterfall Ferry screen. And with flippers, you lose nothing doing that, so I'm surprised that he's swimming over there right now, but he maybe plans to do a Zora DMA instead, which is an exotic DMA.
Yeah, I was thinking that since he has the mirror, he could do that Zora DMD from the Dark World, wind up at Catfish, and mirror it all right in, but that's an alternative choice.
Ooh, and we find the Cane of Samaria right there in the Waterfall Fairy Cave. Now, coupled with that Fire Rod, that does mean we have Ganon's Tower's right side open right now. Which, of course, he does not have that Fire Rod yet, but I expect that he'll soon be going for it.
Yeah, with it being in plain sight like it was, I can't see him missing out on it for very long.
Obscure
Definitely would. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I definitely would expect him to get that before even considering a GT play.
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree. Like, right now, with his item set, there's no real reason to go in there. So, in the meantime, ObscureLifeForm did a fairly recent clip in the Overworld Glitches logic, which is Hookshot Cave from behind, which allows us to bypass the gloves requirement. Which, in principle, and there's the bow. Wow.
Very good find. It's a very silly item to try to track down with how few locations it actually blocks.
Yep, and in fact, those few locations that it blocks could hold at this point both gloves, because we don't need gloves anymore to open Hookshot Cave. Lamp as well. Little more than a convenience item at this point, though.
This seed sounds like Palace of Darkness if you're talking to me. Or at least the contents of that cave.
Yes, but at the same time, you know how Palace of Darkness likes to be with Hammer.
Yeah, the hammer does only block the boss, though, so it's not the worst thing in the world. And in the absolute worst case, you just go to Eastern Palace first, which we already know to be a crystal.
So right here, ObscureLifeForm is attempting to do what we well, it's a sequence break, and I like to call it the Brahmin clip, which allows you to access Laser Bridge without any items. What he doesn't know is that he could do this teleport on the other screen to the left here, and then just transition. That Lionel's being... Ooh, he's dead. He tried to frame rule it, but it didn't work out.
That's a little unfortunate. He had absolutely no way to deal with that Lionel too.
And you know what? That clip could have potentially paid out huge because we have Somalia and had Fire Rod. And now, accessing the laser bridge door is not in logic for overworld glitches, but those two items plus the lamp does in fact allow us to go there. And here's our Dark World map check, by the way. Palace of Darkness and Ice Palace are pendants. Swamp is a crystal, so we are going to need to use these items that we got.
A vanilla number 6 at Misery Mire, not that it means much of anything in overworld glitches, especially with the mirror already in hand.
Ooh, very nice screen grab from ObscureLifeForm. Allows him to bypass going up the many stairs that lead to Eastern Palace. And very good choice right here to go into Eastern with the bow and the lamp already having been found. Glan is also going for that bow and lamp.
Yeah. Eastern Palace at this point, it's a dungeon, it's a crystal, he can full clear it. Pretty much the same routing rule that a lot of runners will follow in No Glitches Seeds will lead them right here. You do it.
At this point, you are given quite a lot of options, because with Samaria we also have Thief's Town, which is a crystal, although, of course, you might not want to dip it with Hammer. Fire Rod almost gives us access to Skullwoods, but we do need that sword to be able to get to the Moth. And of course, as you mentioned, there's absolutely no risk of Bowlock in Palace of Darkness right now, so could be a play.
Yeah. Palace of Darkness being a pendant, I think these runners may be less inclined to do it while they still have other good options. But like I said earlier, the hammer only blocks the boss in there. So if you're going to dip Pendant Pod, dipping it without the hammer is a perfectly valid choice.
Absolutely, and I could see... So, Glan does have two options as a routing terminator here. So, he's on East Dark Death Mountain. There's a bottle, by the way. Not much to do here anymore. He can do Laser Bridge from this using a Mirror Wrap, which, well, pretty much locks him into Turtle Rock at this point, but gets him quite a few items. And I think he's going for it. Oh no, he hasn't done Spiral Cave and Paradox Cave yet. The alternative is that if he decides to pick up the Dark World Portal, of course, to go down to Catfish and then clip to Palace Darkness, do the chest that he can, and then mirror to Eastern Palace.
Yeah, that sounds like a tough choice to me. I think I would personally be on the side of Catfish into Palace of Darkness there, but there's a lot of compelling reasons to go to Turtle Rock, not the least of which being that it's Turtle Rock. That's where all the troll items like to live.
That, and also the fact that with just the Somaria Fire Rod Lamp, you do have the ability to do the entire place back to front, except for Trimax. Now, you do need to go to the front of Turtle Rock at some point, because the big key can only be in a fairly limited amount of chests. You will need that big key in order to get that crystal. So, at some point you will have to do the whole wrap that leads you to clearing most of the place. Might as well do it now.
Yeah. The only real reason not to is if you have a gut feeling about the ice rod that you want to run with. But that's going to be up to each individual runner, and there's no real way for us as commentators to predict that, I don't think.
I would have almost expected at that point for a hint for Ice Rod to show up, but of course nobody's near hint out.
He did pick up that fire shield, though. I like that for exactly one room in the game.
Is it blind?
No, it's Land Rollers too.
You know where it's also useful? If you're doing right side Ganon's Tower with only the lamp, because then the bomb jump becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's actually a good point too. I didn't even consider that one.
It looks like Turtle Rock's front door requires Quake. Safe to say it won't be opened.
We are seeing what will very likely be the Catfish into Palace of Darkness route for Glan here. We've seen the Catfish part of it already, and he's going south, it looks like.
In ObscureLifeForm going for the fast fake flippers for the hobo here, which is completely unnecessary if he remembers to check bomb crocs. In fact, those flippers are a required item, so I hope he doesn't forget about it.
I'm sure he won't entirely forget about it, but he hasn't started at Sank yet so far this seed. And this isn't going to be it either.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. He hasn't been there at all. Well, I mean, he's got Sanctuary left there, Bomb Crocs, and Back of Escape that is immediately accessible from that spawn point, but of course, without a glove, he's not going to be able to go into Back of Escape. And I think at this point, maybe that's what he's just holding out for.
Yeah, with all the fast ways to clip around the overworld, get to Kakariko, get to Death Mountain, wherever you want, there's no real reason for him to start at Sanctuary until he wants to make that Back of Escape check.
Yep, it's also kind of just very likely that if he finds this mirror and that finally pushes him to start exploring the Dark World, well, he has to clip off of the mountain to do that. Now, if he doesn't go for the Swamp Super Jump, he's going to pass by the Bomb Crocs and Dark World, so he can just mirror for them.
Yeah, that's another one that would really hurt for him to escape if he really wanted.
Speaking of escape in general, we also have the option of starting at the pyramid with a pyramid fairy clip, that mirror, and go into the usual way that you want to be checking escape in Overworld glitches, which is do a clip into pyramid fairy, then check pyramid, then mirror for uncle, and then go into the castle.
Also, speaking of, I'm sort of hoping to see 2 gloves in the sewers, just because that would be silly.
Oh, that would be silly. And it's also something that the runners don't want to see at all, not because the gloves are in the sewers, more because you don't want to find the myths in this one. The myths are cursed.
Assuming you know how to clip into Ice Palace without them, they're pretty much entirely useless aside from pointing you in a direction logically, either Ice Palace or the Smiths.
Yeah, Smith is the one that people usually struggle more with without the myths, and especially because just the sequence rakes to get to them are a little bit slow, unless you do know the YBA. The YBA is maybe a little bit faster. So that's what you really want to avoid, is being pointed towards the Smiths.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair assessment. I like the Smiths check and routing in that whole channel a lot when I play. But at the same time, I come very much from a no glitches background when it comes to actually playing the randomizer, so my perspective there is a little bit off.
By the way, while we're on the topic of gloves, we might not actually need any gloves in this seed. Ice Palace being the only dungeon that has a glove hardlock inside. So, with that being a pendant, if there's nothing important there, then there's nothing important in any of the rock lock locations, which there aren't too many of, then we just might not need them at all.
So I'm trying to think how many of those locations there are that can't otherwise be clipped into. The checkerboard cave immediately comes to mind, but Nothing else actually is, even though I know there are a couple.
Funny, because checkerboard is the only one that I can think of myself as well.
Okay, let me downgrade that. Spike Cave is hard glove locked.
Oh yeah, true. But who
Remembering that
likes
because
Spike Cave at all?
certainly not me, but ObscureLifeForm just walked right by it, which reminded me.
The only thing that's bad about not being able to find a glove is just the fact that as long as you have no glove, your only Dark World portal is going to be on Death Mountain.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a pain, but these guys have absolutely no trouble clipping down to get to wherever they need in the main Dark World.
That is true. Well, we find the book in Palace Darkness.
It's a nice fetch quest. It gives you twice as many items as most of the other ones.
As soon as you have a sword, of course, or two. Which also just doesn't want to pop up in this seed. Oh, totally forgot to mention, ObscureLifeForm in Ganon's Tower. We don't need the 7 crystals to do this in this mode. We can just clip past the barrier that usually prevents you from entering. So that also means that Ganon's Tower potentially very much packed with progression.
Right. The no glitches logic uses a pre-fill to make sure that several of the locations are filled with junk, minimize the chances of progression being in Ganon's Tower. Overworld glitches does no such thing, so every single check in this place could potentially be something really useful.
And then it feels really bad when 27 chests in Ganon's Tower contains absolutely nothing. It's happened before.
The good news is I don't think that's especially likely this seed with the access we have and the fact that we still need a bunch of items. But yeah, that would feel bad.
I mean, you say that, but at the same time, if we're looking at a hammer go mode, that means 10 chests are basically out.
Yeah, that's true. But there is the upstairs, and there is that Quake medallion ObscureLifeForm picked up. That may be our Meyer entry. We don't know yet.
That is true. He does also decide to save and quit, despite the fact that he does have access to Ice Armors and 5 other chests in there. He's going to have to redo the right side if that's the hammer, so that could be a massive time loss.
Yeah, and even extending that, he did grab the big key in the first 2 chests on the right side. He could have gone all the way upstairs. Couldn't kill... Well, actually, wait. Did he pick up a bug net?
I actually don't know who has the bug net. I did see it. I think both of them has it.
Because as long as he has that, he could have gone all the way up to Aga 2 if he really wanted.
Well, that's ambitious. I don't blame him for not doing that, though. Another thing that happened there for ObscureLifeForm is that in the screen wrap state, he picked up a bush, which isn't actually the softlock he thought it was. Sure, you cannot actually drop the invisible bush, but you just enter Spike Cave and you can drop it. Looks like Past Darkness wasn't particularly paying off either. I mean, we did find that book.
Yeah, it's a fetch quest. It's all there. Like, there's no other way to sum that up.
I mean, the good news for Glan here is that we know of no other major glitch that lets you get the tablet. So the book is hard required if there is something on the tablets. So ObscureLifeForm, in that screen wrap state that he used, set up a portal. Now, when he does that screen wrapped shenanigans that he did there, his local coordinates don't match up with his global coordinates. They're actually much lower. They in fact corresponded to the Hyrule Castle courtyard, so what he did was mirrored in that state, and now there's a portal here. Why is that important? Because if he takes this portal facing north, he is going to be in Pyramid Ferry. That's all there is to it. You need to be able to get here without saving and quitting, and we missed one of the chests there due to frame drops, but the other one was half magic, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah, especially when your primary weapon at this point's the fire rod. I'll always take that.
I did not see what was on the pyramid, but
It
wasn't
was,
worth
I think
getting.
it was bombs.
Now, interestingly, he opts to skip. Oh, you're not going to be able to get past there. You just realized that. He opts to skip Hyrule Castle off the back of that portal altogether. I don't know why he opted to go to Catfish there instead. That is kind of weird to me.
Yeah, especially when you can just DMD to that basically whenever you want.
Well, I think that's exactly where he's going. He's probably thinking past Darkness. Yeah. Although he could be going Village of Outcasts all the same.
Yeah, fair number of checks for him on either side, so both are good decisions.
Yep, and it looks like he is going towards that area, so this is going to be the first time that we see Outcast, potentially Skullwood. Wait, hold on. No, you're not screen wrapped. Okay, so you are going Village of Outcast. For a moment I thought he was going Swamp, but yeah. Speaking of, we could in fact go in there and also clear it. Well, no, we couldn't because we have no hammer. But I was about to say that the bow can hurt Argus's Cloud Puffs.
That would be so dumb. I don't think there's any situation short of like real major glitches or even no logic where that can actually be a thing. I guess, actually, no, I've seen an Randomizer before, but that's also special in its own way.
Yeah, those are the exact two modes where it can happen, where you can get to the back of a swamp without the hammer. Sort of. It doesn't have to be full no logic. In no EG door glitches or wrong warp, we do have an Underworld clip that can get you behind the hammer pegs, and then you just save and quit and go again, and then the water is drained.
So ObscureLifeForm did detour a little bit out of the way to King's Tomb. Gotta imagine he's gonna mirror that in with the Bonk Rocks right now, which will get him his flippers finally.
Yep, and it's probably off to Bumper Cave after this, and I'm going to be interested in seeing if he opts to do the front of school wards without a sword. I mean, if there's a sword in the front of school wards, he can complete the whole place.
And then Glan is continuing in Ganon's tower, which ObscureLifeForm didn't do, so this is at least 4 more items. Actually, 5 counting the big chest.
Makes perfect sense. The only thing about this is that in order for Hammer to be here, you would need a very specific key layout. You can't have too many keys on the left side. We did find one in Towel Room, and I think that's about it.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, that small key in Tile Room is the only chest small key we found. Glan did pick up the pot key in the hammer room on the left side, and then also picked up the one after the right side chests, but none of those were in chests.
Yeah, and the hammer side key, stealing the hammer side key was actually required as the only small key being in Towel Room. You can get to it without stealing that key. And in fact, no, that just makes this not in logic at all. because you could take that soul key and open up the shortcut, unless upstairs has keys available right now.
Well, not seeing upstairs regardless. I think you're probably right that would be a bit too ambitious of a play for either runner at this point.
I absolutely trust that Glan could do it, but it's still just like if Agatu is in complete sync, that would be the worst for a bugnet execution right there. Plus, you have to be using your bow and your fire rod as the only thing on the climb. Glan, you can reset your camera in Spike Cave or your state. You don't need to do that.
It's okay. Both runners making the same mistake means that the time loss more or less cancels out for them.
Good point. So yeah, the entire gauntlet would have to be completed with resource-consuming items, which is just awful. Glan going for a risky screen wrap here. He's going to do the mirror wrap method. Very nice. So this is actually not risky. He uses a mirror wrap to get himself off of Death Mountain in a screen wrap state. Now, after performing the mirror wrap, since he has done a transition that is perpendicular to the way that he broke his camera, he can just simply unwrap the camera by doing up and down movements very carefully, and now he's in the Dark World mainland. This is very nice, but you do have to perform a transition glitch into a transition that you cannot see, which makes it really hard. ObscureLifeForm is in Hype Cave. I did not see the first two items, but the rest of them were 30 rupees, and he dropped a bomb, so I assume it was nothing important at all.
Yeah, that seems more and more like typical Hype Cave and Overworld glitches from what I've seen. Not that much worth in there.
The progression chain, so to speak, in Overworld glitches tends to be very flat. A lot of items tends to be in Sphere 1, and that means Hype Cave being a Sphere 2 location, it's kind of unlikely to have anything.
Yeah, and the only thing counterbalancing that is Sphere 1 being so big in Overworld glitches, including more or less the entirety of the Light World Overworld.
Yeah, with just Boots and Moonpearl, you can access pretty much any door in Logic other than like Mimic Cave, Ice Palace, and Turtle Rock Laser Bridge.
And ObscureLifeForm did find a glove at some point, presumably while his stream was frozen. I'm gonna guess that was either the Digging Game or Stumpy, because I think those are the two primary locations we didn't see from him.
Yep, but that should be correct. $70 in Maya Shed. I don't know if we checked the medallion.
It didn't look like he did on the restream. I may have missed it twice, though.
Now, if both items are in the front of desert, as you say, I'm interested to see if right here he decides to go for the green pendant. It is a fairly long trek for just the green pendant, and then you still have to turn it in.
And there is definitely a non-zero chance I miscounted in there, because sometimes I just misremember and apparently can't count to 2. It's happened before.
I think it's happened to all of us.
But if I remember correctly, big key on the torch, small key here in the big chest, 3 bombs in the middle chest, and then cash or something in the Popo room on the right.
Looks correct so far.
Let's see if it keeps being correct. No, my memory failing me.
Oh no, what an untimely stream freeze, we'll never know. He's mirrored, and since I don't think he has any checks left in the area, yep, this is Lambo.
Okay, my memory does indeed fail me on that one. And as soon as you can see the map on the menu, so I just did a silly thing and did not remember properly. So this is going to be a 2-item boss kill for ObscureLifeForm once he turns in the green pendant afterward.
Which does make it very appealing, and since it doesn't feel like progression is showing up right now, I mean, let's be honest here, Glan is currently scraping the bottom of the barrel with the Thief Sound dip, and then you still have one chest left in Swamp Palace that I can think of, and then what do we really have for Turtle Rock, right? There kind of is a pretty good chance of something being here. Now, good news, Thief's Down Small Key is in the big chest.
That is very good news for Glan, even if it does mean can't have the hammer.
And at this point, if Blind drops a sword, I'm sure he'd be very, very happy.
A sword or an ice rod would be the two main things he wants to see here, I'd imagine.
But what he will see is the map, apparently.
Ah.
Cane of Samarian is an excellent weapon against Blind if Blind decides to float into it. Does not seem to be cooperating right now.
It's an interesting strat.
Well, it's the only strat he has.
Right, that's definitely true. But it's just a strat that seems to me like there's a lot of potential for it to go south.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, the Cane of Samaria block can cause a soft lock here if it delivers the final hit on Blind while Blind is switching sides.
That's definitely a way for that fight to go south that I wasn't even aware of, but that would be pretty ouch.
I've seen it happen exactly once on Restream, and I'm not even 100% confident in the details, but I do know it's related to Samaria.
Glan's next two checks, we're pretty sure one of them's going to yield a glove, just because where else could it have been?
Well, I should say it's probably not next to, because he's going to route into Maya right here. Oh well, there's the glove.
Yeah, I figured it had to be either here or at Stumpy, and guess he's going to Meyer instead of Stumpy.
It's very common because on this side you can enter, the other side you can exit, so it just routes neatly into what you...
Are we gonna see Glan get ambitious and go into Misery Mire? He can complete it, but his Vitreous options are a little bit sketchy.
That's not entirely true. He cannot open it without a sword.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that little quirk of medallions. But he does have all three, so as soon as he finds a sword, he can open it in full clear.
Yep, which is very much why he wasn't even going to take a peek at what the medallion was. He knows that it's just a sword that's required right now.
Yeah, that's probably the nicest perk of getting all three medallions relatively early.
Yeah, my medallion go mode is almost as bad as an Ice Rod go mode. ObscureLifeForm attempting a Dark World T-Rock climb into a mirror wrap position to get into Laser Bridge quickly, but unfortunately he hit up one cycle earlier than he should have, which got him softlock on the cliff. And I mean, I'm proud that people are trying it, but honestly, it's not much slower to go for the double transition setup.
Okay, I think Glan has exactly one fire rod shot, and yeah, nails it.
That was a 6 out of 6 fight right there. Alright, ObscureLifeForm going for the mirror wrap. He is going to line it up here. Well, I'm actually not sure. He's probably just trying to edge onto the transition. And he gets it. So he just wraps, and he's in Turtle Rock Laser Bridge. So the thing that happens there is if you use the mirror when going east or west on the same frame as you transition, then you don't actually take the transition. It's kind of a weird thing. But if you transition back afterwards, you will be moved half a screen into the screen that you came from. And we find our first sword on the very last chest of Laser Bridge. So there we go.
And I'm thinking about what a coincidence it is. Moving half the screen with that glitch lines you up so nicely with that laser bridge entrance with how relatively small that is. But it works out well for runners in this case.
Yeah, if that ledge was just, I don't know, 2 tiles to the right or left, we suddenly would have to do awful things to actually get in there. I think a mirror jump would still get you in there, but that's about it. So I think at this point we must thank the ALTTP devs' sense of aesthetics.
Yeah. There's so many things in this game that are placed. Like, there's no way most of them were intentional, but they sure feel like it when you play this with a randomizer and with all the glitches allowed.
Yeah, it's funny how some of the glitches just line up so nicely with what's in the game. It's true. By the way, we found out from Glan what was in Hype Cave exactly 51 rupees in 5 chests.
Glan does not have a sword. The only sword we've seen so far this seed is on the laser bridge of Turtle Rock, and Glan has not yet been there.
And it's very interesting if that is the only sword accessible right now and there's progression in Misery Maya. That would be awful. In the kind of the interesting to watch way. And the glove requires the hammer.
We're already awful because this Glan's actually one chest.
Yep. Okay, one thing to note, glove requires the hammer. Very, very good hint. That means you don't have to go into Ice Palace at all for the hammer, which at this point is one of our very few missing items. Also, Smiths and... oh no, sorry. My bad. Get on the left side. Yeah, and hammer pegs. It rules out a whole lot of locations just over.
Well, we're gonna see if there's something on this Bombos tablet.
If this was no logic, if this was no logic, I'd go back for that.
For the rupee hoard?
Yep.
Maybe. Because I guess you got to buy a lot of potions in that mode to do various YBAs and whatnot.
Yeah, and the average no logic seed costs about 2,000 rupees to complete. Not even kidding.
Didn't realize it was that high, but geez.
And that's with, well, I mean, if the moon pearl's not present anywhere, you're going to be going through a lot of blue potions just to get Link State.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense, because you can definitely do a lot of no logic stuff without the pearl. Maybe even the entire thing, if I remember right.
You don't even need no logic for that. Pearless completion is perfectly possible in overworld glitches, although most of the dungeons are obviously sequence breaks. Swamp Palace being the hardest one because you have to use a 0 HP minor glitch to be able to do that, which setting it up is just awful.
Oh. I was sort of hoping he'd take that mushroom and do both fake powder and mushroom turn in right away, just so we can see those fetch quests, get him out of the way, but...
Oh, Glan. Oh, this is so bad. Alright, so Glan set up his mirror portal in the Hyrule Castle courtyard. Was planning to check Graveyard Ledge and then hop into Houlihan to quickly teleport back to Link's house. Now, he failed the Graveyard Ledge clip, which means he's stuck here. And now he's trying desperately to get killed by cabbages so that his mirror portal's preserved. But apparently the cabbages are, for once, cooperating and not trying to kill Glan.
Yeah, this calls for a lot of Bless RNG, but we only need 2 more now. There we go.
I mean, at this point, it probably would have been faster to just redo the whole thing and you don't miss Graveyard Ledge. Okay, ObscureLifeForm picked up the hammer. I can only assume that was in Turtle Rock.
Yeah, somewhere that we didn't see.
So
regardless, he has a sword. He could kill Moldorm.
Yeah, but it's a little bit more convenient to do so with the hammer than with a fighter sword.
Oh, absolutely.
And both of those things were in Turtle Rock, so as far as we can see here, Turtle Rock is very much required for this. And well, I mean, the hammer's the hammer, so it's just very much required, full stop.
Actually, with that hammer found, are we looking at a sword go mode?
Well, we are...
Oh, wait,
not
Ice Rod.
Because Ice Rod. But also, we just found another sword in its vanilla location on the Uncle.
Yeah, that's a good find. I can't imagine ObscureLifeForm will miss that for very long once he actually starts looking for the Ice Rod he'll need to clear the game.
Well, that is so delightfully overworld glitches that you routed Uncle at 53 minutes.
And he still has progression.
Yep. So, down goes Moldon for ObscureLifeForm here. That's 1 Hera completed. He is going back in? I don't know, he was checking if he missed anything, but I didn't see either the map or the compass on his menu, so I assume the placement is basically crashed at this point.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the fact that he has neither of those at this point means that one was in the peg cage part of the basement and the other is in the firelock side.
That's entirely reasonable. Now he's going back into the middle of Turtle Rock. He picked up the big key previously. Didn't want to... Well, okay, this is purely conjecture because I didn't see it, but I assume he didn't want to lose his door, which was laser bridge, so he just decided to save and quit from the very front after not finding the ice rod there, and now he's going back into, well, first Mimic Cave and then to open the big chest.
We did see a hint saying that Mimic Cave is just cash, but there is still a big chest to be opened too. And I'm pretty sure we only saw that hint correctly.
Yeah, I think at this point it had to be Thief's Sound in there, or maybe Swamp. I don't think Obscure did Swamp at all.
No, it was one of those two though.
Yeah. And there's our third sword in the sewers.
That'll be nice for Glan, because he's not going to miss that sword on Laser Bridge, I bet a lot. So he'll have Tempered Sword for Ganon, which we know the silver arrows are on the Lumberjack. We're not going to see these guys kill Aghanim just for that. So whatever swords they find are what they're doing Silverless with.
Yep, and at this point, yeah, Glan does have to go into Turtle Rock eventually for that hammer. And just to clear it, so he is going to be opening chests in there, is what I mean to say, and that means he is going to be with Tempered. Very nice bonus here. Now, he is doing what we call bomb escape. So for this, you line up yourself in a very specific spot, place a bomb, and then just dash into the explosion. And if it hits you correctly, and if you lined it up correctly, then he will be knocked onto the ledge. That was 1 pixel too high, by the way. And, of course, sub-pixels actually come into play here. That should be correct as long as he resets his sub-pixels correctly. There we go. And there he did have to just dash, and he would be out of his gauge.
There he goes.
Just looking for a fairy. So, he is going into Maya. Full stop. Good choice, you can full clear it. You have everything you need to do that. It's a little bit tough with the equipment that you have on Viprius. But otherwise it's, again, just required, good choice. Unfortunately, he won't find Hammer here, but if he finds the Ice Rod, that could lead him directly into Turtle Rock, which would be huge.
Yeah, that would be a straight go mode for him once he finds that hammer, so... Ice Rod would be a very good find for him at this point, or at any point, really.
Now, the bad news is, that hammer opens 10 chests in Ganasaro Road, so the chances that the Ice Rod is here versus it's locked behind hammer, very slim.
Yeah, and those odds only get worse once you factor in Swamp Palace as well, which still has 5 items to find.
That's also true. Meanwhile, we got ObscureLifeForm back briefly here, and he is fighting Muffler.
Half magic fire rod strats, better than any sword, except tempered or better.
Which he could have if he mirrored after getting Pyramid Fairy.
Yeah, but at this point I want to see him find the Ice Rod just so that the sword is his go mode item. Just because I really like that sort of silly idea.
That is very evil if the swords are bad. Well, in this case they're not. They're literally within an arm's reach. So, yeah, let's go for that.
Yeah, like, imagine getting your go mode off Uncle in literally any seed.
More than an hour into the seed, no less.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing I want to see here. Glan finding that small key means that the big key is going to be in this cutscene chest, because Meyer key logic is actually fairly predictable once you know.
I honestly don't understand that thing, but I also come to learn that one specific rule, that the left side will entirely tell you if the big key is in the cutscene chest.
Basically, the idea is that you cannot have a small key on the left side without the big key, because otherwise you could take a small key downstairs and misuse the small key to get into the rupee room. However,
Go ahead.
You can have the big key on the left side without a small key, so it's not 100% reliable unless you see the small key first.
One of the reasons I am kind of excited for the competitive logic is that we abolish this silly key logic thing in Misery Maya. Because you have no reason at all ever to open that door. Also, we picked up the flute from the Skullwood's big chest, which is a completely useless item at this point. He's going to activate it because he's going to be passing it by the statue in Village of Outcast / Kakariko, but that's the only reason that you would activate it at this point.
Are we actually going to see him activate it? Because that's like spending 10 seconds in a race, and I guess he does have the mirror equipped, but...
Someone once said that if you're planning to use the flute even once, then activate it because it evens out if you're passing by this.
Yeah, I guess. I don't see the use for it at this point, because clips will get you just about anywhere just as fast.
The big one would be if he picked up the hammer-locked mitts somewhere around here. Because in that case, he could flute down to Maya, use the normal way of entering the Maya area.
Also, I just saw Glan use fake powder as a safety. I love it. My favorite safety in the game, so shout outs to him.
My favorite safety is fake powdering with the actual powder. Because you can do that.
Yeah, that's pretty useful to check magic that with. If you've got the cane and you've got the hammer like super early before you've been anywhere, you can get that in your first Kakariko trip where there's otherwise no magic.
Yep, one of the most annoying properties of the Batcave is that there's no magic drops down there, so... Got one very nice spooky action out of plan there. Two didn't happen though.
I normally see the second one just by shooting the right-hand torch in this lit room, but I guess there's a difference there. The other one's probably faster? I don't know.
We're going to see some damage boost on Glan's side here on the Vitreous fight. This is very risky. He could have just straight up died there. Oh boy. An unfortunate lightning would be very bad.
Yeah, but... Okay, he did dodge that lightning, so he's good now. Just needs 8 arrows into the big eye and it's down. And that was absolutely nothing but a crystal in Misery Mire for Glan.
So, I think there's a very good reason that he did this specific routing. He was thinking very hard whether to spawn in Mountain Cave or in Link's house. And, well, I mean, he's probably going Skullwoods at this point. But I could see him go into Tower of Hera, into Turtle Rock afterwards at any point. He was very hard. He was considering it very hard. And I don't blame him. Like, at this point, you kind of want to do that Turtle Rock dip, but then you're kind of afraid of not finding Ice Rod. Which, in Overworld Glitch, is not that big of a deal if you don't find it in Turtle Rock. You can get very easily into the Laser Bridge door.
Yeah, not nearly as big of a loss, but still something I think most runners would like to not have to go through. Exactly. Time loss is time loss.
Because, you know, the door that leads into Laser Bridge, very conveniently accessible, okay. But on the other hand, if you find the big key in the vanilla location, there's a very significant portion of Turtle Rock that you can skip. So maybe he's playing on the Gomo Turtle Rock idea. Not opting to go for a back-to-front score was interesting. Now we know that the other item is in the big chest. I don't remember where we found the big key, but this is why people usually go for the back-to-front. Now on the other hand, if you get both the items, you can straight up save and quit from Mafia at this point, so it's a gamble either way. And here we see ObscureLifeForm actually activating that flute. Glan's not going to go back. He's going to be very unhappy with the fact that the item is not in the pack. So as far as I remember, these are the 2 dungeon items back here. In the meantime, ObscureLifeForm going for that clip? Why are you doing that clip? Oh, okay. So this is something exotic that we don't see often. He is going for a wrap that allows him to get the smith. This allows him to place a mirror portal exactly 1 screen down from where he is, which just corresponds to the location of the smith. You can usually not bypass that mid-block rock that easily, but this will do a good job of doing that. You'll be able to pick it up and then take it straight in. And, I mean, at this point we're hunting for the Ice Rod, which is basically a literally anywhere item, so I'm not surprised.
I have seen some strange ways of getting to the Smiths before, mostly in vanilla, but I think this is a new one for me.
Yeah, this one is, it's annoying, to say the least, because you do need, of course, the mirror to place the portal, but also, when you place the portal, you are stuck in an about 3x1 tiles worth of space. There's walls to your north, to your south, to your east, and there's a hard locking transition to your west. So the only way that you get out of there is A, you flute, or B, you use an obscene amount of bombs to perform a death warp.
I don't think 10 qualifies as obscene when these guys have 9 hearts and blue mail, though.
Yeah,
So
you
if they
would
get
need to.
stuck,
You would need to set up your health 100%. Which, I mean, isn't that difficult to do, and of course there's absolutely no danger of dying to some random enemy. Because once you're screen wrapped, there's basically nothing that you can collide into. Glan got the flute and is thinking. I think he was thinking about activating it right there.
Yeah, but with all the checks in Kakariko done, with both Skullwoods and Thievestown now done, he's not going to walk by that bird statue anymore. So it'd be a little out of the way to activate it.
Did we actually see Glan do every Kakariko check? Did he do Sick Kid? Did he do Fake Powder? I don't remember these.
Okay, actually, yeah, you're right. I don't think he's done either of those checks. I forgot about them myself.
And I think he forgot too, because he did pass through Village of Outcasts when he came from Maya.
Well, this Moldorum kill will be Glan's 5th crystal, and his only real option after that is either to dip Ice Palace without the hammer or go to Turtle Rock.
And I think we all know that he is 100% going Turtle Rock, because who wants to dip Ice Palace without the hammer?
Yeah, I would be shocked to see that from him.
So, in the meantime, oh no, Obscure, no! Okay, ObscureLifeForm did a clip into the moat, which is ordinarily an inaccessible location where you can swim. But you can jump into it using a major glitch from the pyramid side, which allows you to swim over to some very broken collision right next to the hammer pegs area. So you can clip inbounds there, and if you don't jump into the trees like he did, he would be at hammer pegs. But unfortunately, he jumped into a tree, then he pressed north, which made things worse, because when the game detects that you're stuck inside something, then pushing in one direction attempts to knock you out in the other direction. So just pushing north just put him further inside that tree.
And then he was very unfortunately stuck, and he's got to do it again.
Yep. Now, Glan is going to do upper GT here. Interesting choice based on the fact that we haven't seen many keys. This is just key logic-wise, this is a huge gamble, and in the first 2 chests upstairs, basically he would have to find at least 1, but maybe even 2 keys for this to be even considered to be in logic. I don't know why he would do this over Turtle Rock. I don't agree with this decision.
I do think we've hit the point where logic is more or less optional, because we know that the last missing item is the Ice Rod. Because there are a few places it can't be, such as Ice Palace with the glove behind the hammer hint we got earlier.
Well, Ice Palace could have Ice Rod, it just can't have the hammer, which we already know is in Turtle Rock, so
right.
We know about that, and at that point it just becomes a literally anyway.
Yeah, but like I said, Glan doesn't know about the hammer. I think he's probably hoping to find the Ice Rod first. Even though, like you said earlier, having the double dip Turtle Rock not nearly as big of a deal in Overworld glitches where you can clip to the laser bridge, as opposed to no glitches where you'd have to redo the whole dungeon.
Yep, and on the other hand, if the left side of, he should know at least. It's Glan. Glan's a genius, okay? He should at least suspect that hammer cannot be here, but even if it is, you're not going to declimb the tower, so if the Ice Rod is on the left side of GT, it's going to be a double dip.
Yeah, and I think that's basically the gamble he's making at this point, that the Ice Rod is not in Ganon's tower.
Alright, we're past land mode 2. Very swift descent so far.
Yep. Just got the Wizrobe rooms and the torch rooms before we're on back to actual checks.
He is a bit low on magic, but he does have that green potion, and of course he does have enough magic to do the first torch room. Has that full magic pickup in the stair room right after it.
Yeah, absolutely nothing to worry about. In fact, I'd be more concerned about his health than his magic at this point, and he still has 6 hearts blue.
I mean, if he is playing smart with his magic here, he could go for fake powder on the double fairy, or double anti-fairy, or anti-fairy plus body beam. He is instead going to go for a full refill, so I don't think he's just concerned about his health at all.
Right. That was sort of the point I was making. I'd be more concerned about his health than his magic, and I'm not concerned about his health in the slightest.
Well, there's the shovel.
Don't you love fetch quests?
Interesting. So that key would maybe... I'm not actually 100% sure. I think there's one door at this point, but I don't know the order of opening doors here, which is the bigger problem. For this to be in logic for hammer. Maybe I should be thinking about this, so...
I'm fairly confident that he's out of logic for hammer at this point, but who knows? Meanwhile, we do have Obscure back. He's in Swamp Palace with that hammer.
And he is going through the left side first. Meanwhile, he still hasn't dipped the escape sequence because he's still on Fighter Sword. So it's going to be a very long August fight.
Yeah, we'll see if he's capable of the double pull strats with the Fighter Sword, which can get a little bit silly because of the probability of you just poking one of the puffs for 0 damage.
Agatu is not playing nice today, but does get in 4 cycles. Perfectly fine. So this is 100% required. That should be underlined. There's no way Glan could have avoided climbing the tower, doing Agatu. So in that regard, this is an excellent choice as a way to maybe ensure that you did everything in your power not to have to double dip Turtle Rock. But at this point, he just has to be getting close to that point where he's going to do it.
Yeah, I would imagine that's probably his next play, even.
Nope, Graveyard Ledge first.
Okay, yeah, he does still have this check because he failed that clip earlier, unfortunately.
And this has been in logic ever since he got the hook shot, which was roughly 3 minutes into the seed. So, I mean, he had to have been very concerned about this being the hammer.
It's so important to keep in mind at this point, though, that just looking at the uncleared dungeons on his tracker, he's exhausted his checks in Pod and Swamp. He knows that the hammer can't be an Ice Palace because of the hint, even though the Ice Rod theoretically could be. So, as far as dungeons goes, Turtle Rock's his only choice. And I think there are a few scattered Overworld checks for him to do at this point. Like, he hasn't done the Smith sequence yet, and he could do that. A lot of questionable stuff.
Yeah, and from his perspective, the Smith sequence is absolutely the worst. He knows that the Smith sequence itself can't be the hammer, because, of course, the hammer is locking the mitts. The hammer pegs can't be the hammer because the hammer is locking the hammer pegs. So there's only the magic bat in that area that could lead him to that particular progression. I mean, of course, he could do it for Ice Rod, but that's a lot of going out of your way for Ice Rod.
He did see the magic bat in Tower of Hera, so...
Oh, I missed that then.
It's just cash.
There's Tempered Sword, so nothing to worry about on the Glan fight now.
I do wonder if that fourth sword will be showing up. It's not really of any significant value, but would still be interesting.
At this point, we can safely assume that anything that we haven't seen so far is just sitting in the left side of Ganon's Tower. That is by far the most valuable locations that we have left and unchecked. Now, I'm curious if ObscureLifeForm here picked up Ice Rod in his ventures through Swamp Palace.
Unfortunately, not going to be able to judge that until either during or after the Argus fight, depending on what strat he uses.
Yep.
Just need to wait for him to menu.
No Ice Rod. So, left side of Ganon's Tower. I just keep saying it, it's gotta be it.
Yeah, at this point there are so few that you're right. I guess the real question, do you think Glan will just run right back over there after getting his hammer out of Hera? Or out of Turtle Rock, excuse me? I can't words.
100%. I mean, no, actually that's not true. I think he's going to do either that, or he's going to do a left sideless swamp. And he's just going to gamble on left side being worthless, which it probably is, judging by Obscure's inventory. Or otherwise he's going to go for Ganon's Tower first and then go for Swamp, depending on what he feels a little bit safer about. The reason it's kind of unclear, okay, Ganon's Tower left side reasonably valuable, but on the other hand could be 100% not required. While just the trek to Argus and Swamp is going to be required because of the crystal.
Yeah. Well, to get most runners to go back to Ganon's Tower after finding that hammer. But especially in 1v1 races like this, you do occasionally see crazy things like that.
And I mean, it's overworld glitches, and we were essentially conditioned here to be worried about Ganon's Tower in general, because often, like, when you start out in this mode, you just don't even consider it as an option. You kind of, like, put it away as something that you do at the very end of the seed, which can obviously bite you really hard with the fact that it can have progression. Not even the Swamp Palace big chest had the Ice Rod, so Swamp Palace is a complete bastard we've pretty much gotten used to over the years.
I love seeing Swamp Palace be a total bust. The only problem is that it still means that Obscure went to the left side in search of his item, and he still had to do it.
Yep, he 100% wasted that time. There's something, it's something that Glan I doubt will do, and since it didn't pay off at all, well, I mean, that's just time Glan's going to be ahead by. Now, on the other hand, I mean, Obscure did get that hammer faster. He does have Swamp cleared. I don't know, it's even-ish. It's still kind of hard to tell, but Glan does have the huge advantage of having Agatu down now. So, I don't know. He's been a little bit more efficient overall.
Yeah. Again, ObscureLifeForm clears Meyer here. What's he going to have left besides the left side and top of Ganon's Tower? Not very much.
Yeah, just based on the fact that we are running out of checks, I would put Glan ahead here, squarely. Because there's no real way for Glan to be, well, trapped in a rabbit hole.
Yeah, but like I don't think there are any rabbit holes left for ObscureLifeForm. I guess there's Ice Palace.
And, well, there's two, but one of them is not really a rabbit hole, which is Hyrule Castle. He has completely skipped on that. As far as we know, he probably needs to do it because of the sword for the go mode. If Ice Palace decides to turn up before that, of course. Did I say Ice Palace? I wanted to say Ice Rod.
Yeah, you said Ice Palace, but that is the one location we're sort of overlooking. Ice Rod can be there. Like, we're talking about left side of Ganon's tower as if it's a sure thing, but it most definitely isn't while those 3 checks still exist.
It's true. Statistically speaking, of course, like Ganon's tower is the optimal play here, but yes, we've seen Rando defy statistics over and over and over again.
Yeah. So chat saying that Obscure should wind up with Master Sword because Turtle Rock's a crystal, but the Turtle Rock sword is the one that Obscure has. So that's not exactly on the table. The only other swords we know of at this point for him are both in the escape area.
Now, I did not pay enough attention to the item layout in Turtle Rock, but there's of course the chance that Trinex does have a sword.
True. I believe that that's non-zero.
Alright, time to see how safely Glan wants to plan this. Sorry, I can't words either.
It happens. I mean, the fact that I'm here talking is proof that it happened.
There was a nice bit of graphical corruption there. For a moment I thought ObscureLifeForm was trapped in an Underworld major glitch, but...
I'm pretty sure that was his stream and not actually his game. Anyways, like you predicted, Glan is skipping the left side. We weren't able to see how many items were there from Obscure's dip, I don't think, so... If it's 3 items, would he go back?
Good question. And that is kind of the thing I wanted to point to, is we know that the big chest is a heart piece. I also think that we saw no hints for that. So Glan might go back after the boss for that big chest. Actually, no, he's just going to go upstairs here. No, he's not. Alright, he's fully committed to skipping as much of Swamp Palace as he can. Which, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with, but we know is the optimal play.
There's a magic cape. Not especially useful, although Obscure might find some use for it if he's on Master Sword Ganon.
Yeah, I think Glan might too consider it, depending on the cycles that we get in the first 2 phases of Ganon, because there's a few positions where the cape is really good for getting a few doubles, just letting you do a single cycle of the phase.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is the power of actually checking Hyrule Castle. You get to kill Argus in basically 1 cycle with the Temple Sword.
Having a bit of trouble with his fire rod shots means that he's resorting to spins, though.
I don't blame him. Argus is deceptively fast.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of practice to be able to consistently nail those strats, and even then, stuff can and does go wrong.
Obscure going for some bomb strats to soften up the eyeballs on Vitreous. This is really good. The bombs do hit twice on each eyeball they touch for Master Sword damage, which is, well, I mean, it's not a lot. The eyeballs take a lot of Master Sword slashes to bring down, but I mean, otherwise it's good area damage, and it will give him the ability to finish this fight with bow.
Yeah, he should. Yeah, he'll definitely have 8 arrows left over for the big eye after wiping out the small ones here.
But this fight does consume basically all of his resources. By the way, Glan going back to the left side of Swamp, so there you go. He is still ahead by 1 entire Ganon's Tower climb, but at least the left side is no longer a thing that he has on ObscureLifeForm here. And I mean, okay, ObscureLifeForm does have to do Ragged 2, which means he is 100% going to check that left side.
Yeah, and if the Ice Rod is on the left side of Ganon's Tower, I've got to imagine he'll clear that as well, which plays to his advantage.
The unfortunate thing here is the lack of... Oh no, what are you doing? Ooh, well, this is a play, but you can't lift the rock. You can't lift the rock.
He may
Oh
have...
no, you're just buying capacity.
Oh yeah, because he used all his bombs up against Vitreous there.
This is a good choice.
Yeah, 100 rupees for both capacity upgrades and refills. When you've got as many rupees as he does and no real use for them, it's not a bad choice.
So, one of the unfortunate things here for ObscureLifeForm is that lack of Hyrule Castle Dip, which means he is on Fighter Sword, which means while he should be in Go mode if Ganon's Tower left side has that Ice Rod, he won't be because, of course, the sword situation, which means he might clear a little bit too much. Like at this point, if Ganon's Tower left side has the Ice Rod, we know that Ice Armors is completely skippable.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like, and this is why I'm having a hard time seeing how he comes back into this. On the other hand, if Ice Palace has that Ice Rod, so if he goes into Ganon's Tower, finds nothing at all, well, I mean, he's done basically all the checks that Glan's done, albeit a little bit more inefficiently. Upper GT, a complete bust, with the Dick Spot turning up, only a heart container.
A little unfortunate, but when we're looking for just the needle in the haystack like this, pretty expected.
And I think we're about to see a sick kit check here. I mean, while you're here, you might as well activate the flute as well. Maybe go for the Smith sequence break. I don't see Glan doing it because it's kind of slow to get into the Dark World at this point without mitts. On the other hand, I mean, what are his options really? I'm gonna say it right now. I am terribly disappointed that he's not going left side GT.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I can remember, his options at this point are that Smith sequence, Ice Palace, Helmasaur King. And I can't even remember if Helmasaur King has an item or not.
I have a question. ObscureLifeForm has Master Sword.
Oh, so he...
Where did he go? Oh, was it in Spike Cave? Oh my god, it was in Spike Cave, wasn't it?
It must have been, because I don't think we missed any other checks from him since he finished Swamp Palace.
Alright, we're about to see simultaneous Ganon's Tower dips, I expect. Oh no, wait, hold on. Spike Cave, well, Glan's about to be on Butter Sword, which means Ganon will be a joke. But
And then
he did do it with a broken camera, so he's 100% going Ganon's Tower off of this.
Yeah, which means that there's no advantage to be had for ObscureLifeForm here if the Ice Rod is there.
Yep, this is very much the beginning of the end. And of course, well, if it's not there, well, ObscureLifeForm is going to have a very long time clearing all of Ganon's Tower, whereas Glan will be just leaving and going into Ice Force. Oh no! Well, that's a little bit of a delay. So, if you try to do the Ganon's Tower clip without being fully in before you press the appropriate inputs, you just get thrown onto, well, I believe, but I am not 100% sure, what is the top left of the Death Mountain screen. It's not terribly useful. It's basically useless for anything other than hard locking, so you immediately want to save and quit.
I think that same thing did happen to Obscure when he was trying to get into Ganon's Tower after Spike Cave, but I couldn't tell for sure.
Well, yeah, he did do a save and quit after Spike Cave, so it must have happened. Funny how both of the races are doing the same mistakes.
It is also, with as close as this race is right now, worth noting that Glan's timer is 2.5 minutes ahead of a...
Oh! Well, yes, I suppose the constant stream stopping is just causing sync issues. So, yeah, ObscureLifeForm did get in here about 3 minutes ahead of him. That could be a big factor, although I don't think it's big enough to maybe place him in on even footing with Glan here.
Yeah, I agree that it's not... It's probably not going to overturn the apparent lead for Glan, but it probably does make it a lot closer than it actually looks.
Yeah, and it's only closer if the Ice Rod is here and not in Ice Palace, because in that case, ObscureLifeForm is going to be doing a few more unnecessary checks.
Actually,
And
do we know if Obscure has been in Palace of Darkness at all yet?
he doesn't have the book, so no. Oh dear.
Well, that could be good for him if the Ice Rod is on Helmus or King specifically. Which,
Or on
like I said
Pedestal.
earlier, I cannot remember if that's a possibility.
It could be on Pedestal.
True. Absolutely. Good. There. Glove requires a hammer indeed.
Yep, that is 100% hammer locked. All 10 chests on this left side, so if you get that hint, it could be referring to any of these. There's the powder. Thanks, game. Nothing. Alright, the game's getting interesting.
Yep. And we're gonna have to wait till Obscure Stream comes back to be able to judge where he is in relation to Glan. But oh, it's not Ice Palace right out the gate for Glan. I thought it might have been.
Picked up the myth, so now he's going for the Smith sequence, and he's probably going to do Ice Palace right after the purple chest. But at this point, this is good for Obscure. Glan's starting to do some of those checks that he did, even though those were inefficient for Obscure, going to be efficient from Glan because he does have the items to do it the fastest way possible. Every little bit that Glan goes out of his way to do checks that Obscure's already done is pretty good for Obscure.
Right, just a little bit of time here and there to get him back closer to parity. But it does leave that question open of where is the Ice Rod? Ice Palace, maybe Helmus or King if he still has an item, Pedestal, any other locations even left?
I don't think so.
If there are, I'm certainly not thinking of them either.
No, I honestly can't name anything that we haven't seen in that god yet. "17 heart containers."
This Ice Rod hunt has become.
I mean, there's just about there's about 3 items that are this awful. There's the Ice Rod, there's the Maya Medallion and the bow. But somehow, it's almost always the Ice Rod. Well, here we go, into the depths of Ice Palace.
Yeah, and we're gonna see every single chest checked right up until the ice rod is found. There is absolutely no reason to skip any of it.
And we are going to see exactly 0 chests checked afterwards, because, I mean, how could this possibly become better of a Ganon fight without getting those silvers off of the Aggle Edge?
Well, for everybody's sanity, let's just hope that it's in this Pengator chest right here.
So, as a bit of an update from ObscureLifeForm stream right now, he is in Upper Ganon's Tower, about to enter the Moldom 2 fight. So, he has cleared everything, and I mean everything, in Ganon's Tower, which, again, just puts Glan squarely in the lead.
Yeah. They're at parity as far as crystals and items go, but Obscure still has to kill Aga 2 before we can really say we'll have a good chunk of Ice Palace down.
Again, it's just one of the slowest dungeons in the game, so a good chunk of Ice Palace down is just so big of a lead. And I mean, of course, there's the other matters. There's the matter of Obscure not having been in Palace Darkness at all. There's the matter of... Well, I mean, okay, Palace Darkness is probably the biggest deal, because why wouldn't you go Palace Darkness right before Ice Palace? But there's also just the matter of, well, Glan has followed up on that book already. Little things like that.
Right, and we know that none of that is anything. So it's just straight up an advantage to Glan at this point. He's cleared more, and he's cleared more efficiently. That was almost a really cool dash strat, just failed to kill the one Pengator.
Yep, and this race just overall goes to show that, oh hey, there's the Kanan burner. This race just overall goes to show that just efficient routing can compensate so much for having missed one item for quite a while.
Absolutely, especially when that item it blocks a moderate number of locations in the hammer. Far fewer than in, say, no glitches.
Yeah, especially when all the hammer-required dungeons are going to be pendants. Here, it's of course not the case because Swamp was still a crystal, but Palace Darkness and Ice Palace being pendants, well, you don't even really want to see that hammer until quite late. There is the possibility overall of an overall glitch seed never requiring the hammer at all. You would need very specific pendant layout, which is Palace Darkness, Swamp Palace, and Ice Palace, would have to have none of those be required, and the left side of Ganon's Tower not be required. It is kind of a unicorn seed that we haven't really seen so far.
Yeah, it's the same concept as like a glove not required seed or a bow not required seed.
Yes, although those are kind of more likely to pop up, of course. With the bow requirement being dependent on 2 dungeons overall. The glove requirement being dependent on just 1 dungeon, really.
Right, and this seed could acquired seed.
You cut out there for a second.
Oh, sorry, I was saying that this seed, it could have been a glove not required. Except for the fact that we had to come into Ice Palace. Or presumably had to come into Ice Palace.
At this point, well, if it's not on Helmasaur King, this is almost certainly glove required. And there's the ice rod, so that is actually not glove required. The big key being in the room upstairs, and that chest, if the big key is not glove locked, then that chest is not glove locked. We did not need the glove.
Isn't the only glove lock thing in Ice Palace Cold Stare itself?
No, there's also the big rock that you have to lift to access the 2 chests on the right side.
Oh, right. I generally don't think of that one just because I think of that in terms of the hammer requirement, not the glove requirement. But you are completely right.
Everything that requires the hammer in Ice Palace also requires the glove. It's one of those lessons that you learn when you play Entrance Randomizer. You're like, yeah, I have the hammer, I can go in there, except, well, you can't clear it because you forget about all the big rocks that you are supposed to lift.
Mm-hmm. And we did see Obscure. He's in the Stalfos room of Ice Palace right now. He'll do the bomb jump, and then we'll see whether he routes the Freezor in the big chest before the right side. Well, we may or may not see that.
I sincerely doubt that he would go for those chests before the right side. It just, routing-wise, it makes no sense because it's so hard to get back up. It's so slow.
Right. If you're going to do it like that, your only real option is to go from the big chest to the iced tea room back up to the tall icy room.
Yeah, and like overall, the only reason that you would really do that is that you're in here in Ice Palace, being forced in there without the hammer or the glove. Because in those cases, you know that on the left side there's not much that you can do. Oh, sorry, on the right side.
But unfortunately for Obscure, Glan is on his way to the Trinex fight as soon as he places blocks in front of him and not to his side for some strange, silly reason.
I like to call that the action turning. You can do it in a couple of ways. You can turn while opening a chest. You can turn while doing something. You will do all of these things towards the original side that you are facing, rather than the side that you turn towards. Which is funny that he managed to nail a simultaneous key press there, but failed to mirror wrap twice.
Yep. And there's Trinex down. Not quite 0 cycle, but about as good as you could get without actually properly executing 0 cycle. And there's a bottle.
Pre-filled with the blue goo, the seed knowing that you're not going to have Sylvis for the fight. So, yeah, at this point, Glan is ahead by 1 crystal, half of Ice Palace, and 2 swords. So, I mean, how many Ganonfuls is this?
It's a few. It's not a lot, but it's more than 1 or 2. But yeah, at this point, all Glan's got to do is get down to the pyramid by whatever means he prefers. Fake Flute looks to be the way.
That was beautifully executed. So he used the Catfish DMD to position himself on that transition, which we always know is going to put you inside the transition. Very good thinking right there. Uses a Fake Flute in the Dark World to transport himself to 4. Now, that puts him in the Fake Light World, which means as soon as he transitioned off of the Link's house screen, he actually entered the Dark World proper, because transitioning erases fake worlds. And now he is in a Dark World that has the Light World music and Tau set loaded. But that doesn't prevent him from entering the Ganon fight.
Yep, and just 4, 5, 6 slashes, and phase 1 is down. And then phase 2 doesn't start counting until he starts spinning his trident, but that's down just as easily.
Beautiful dash strats. Ganon. Okay, there we go. Ganon.
Come on,
Please.
Ganon, be a friend.
Please.
Still needs to hit 2 more times, and Ganon's still not quite. Okay, there he goes.
Looks like Ganon's getting a little bit tired, but not tired enough to give us a good pattern. Gets the first spin very nicely. Going to go for a Fire Rod Torch Glitch. Gets it on first try. Beautiful.
Just needs 10 more spins to knock Ganon down for good.
He's going for the triple. Gets the first hit of it, the hardest one. And we are 6 hits away. 5. Oh no, he misses one. That's going to add an extra cycle.
That's not going to be any trouble with the half magic he's got.
And the 2 blue potions that he has left over.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't screw his way up into a fall, he should have no problems finishing this off.
Very nicely done.
Yep, now we just listen to the fanfare, wait for the bridge to spawn, then he'll cross it, and GG.
GG to Glan here. He finishes in first place with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 58 seconds. Get your GGs in chat.
Yeah, clearing that seed in under 2 hours is a pretty good mark with how silly some of those placements were.
I mean, the Ice Palace again. Just every time, Pendant Ice Palace seems to be the place to be.
Yeah. And especially on Glan's side, this was pretty much a full clear, because he did everything in pod besides Helmasaur.
So in the meantime, live reporting from ObscureLifeForm's stream, he just finished off Trinex, getting his 7th crystal, and is about to jump into a Master Sword Ganon fight.
Might feel slightly silly when he learns that he was just a mirror away from a tempered sword, but that's how it goes sometimes.
Gonna see in the meantime if we can get Glan in for an interview. For now, I am going to shoutcast this because, I mean, we do have some manner of functional stream. ObscureLifeForm currently in the Darkworld Octorock section, entering the pyramid screen. And he is climbing the pyramid.
Didn't quite use the same fake flute shenanigans that Glan did to reach the pyramid, but actually I didn't see what method he used at all, but may have been a save and quit to Link's house and just using that portal south.
Yep, that's exactly what he went for. And now in the Ganon fight with his Master Sword, so this is going to be kind of long and exhausting. Little does he know, all he had to do there was mirror into the uncle to get the Tempered Sword, and maybe even clear Hyrule Castle for the brothers.
Yeah, also chat's asking if there's another race after this. There actually is. At 4:30 p.m., so in about half an hour, we'll be seeing Glan vs. Hacksaw on this channel.
And we are joined by Glan, GG.
Thank you.
So, how was it?
Started off well.
And
then,
at which point did it turn sour?
When I checked escape, I guess.
Your opponent still hasn't.
Ooh.
He's in the Ganon fight, though, so he's doing all right for himself.
So, yeah, 2 swords hid in escape, which, I mean, to be fair, can't really be blamed that you wouldn't go for that. You had so many options, and, I mean, like, when do you really want to go for Pyramid Ferry into Hyrule Castle?
Yeah.
The more interesting question I have is Hammer, which, I mean, you took so long to find.
Yes. When I did escape, it was a toss-up between that or Turtle Rock. I figured better to do Overworld if I can't, like, if I don't have the Ice Rod yet, better do Overworld first.
I mean, it makes sense. Regarding that, though, so at one point you were on Dark Death Mountain. I do not know if at that point you had Cane, Fire Rod, and Lamp, but I seem to remember that you did. You had a choice to either go down into Palace Darkness or go into Turtle Rock and get every chest except Trinex. Why
Yeah.
Palace Darkness?
To get Eastern done, really.
Makes sense.
And like I didn't
And
have
that
the
was-
hammer yet, but it was a pendant. Like Pod was a pendant, so I figure it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I basically agreed with that decision making at the time once we realized you were going to pod. It's just a little unfortunate it didn't pan out.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, though, super efficient in your routing. I mean, School had the hammer a good 30 minutes ahead of you, I'd want to say. So, given that, you made the best of your options. I think he still hasn't been in Palace Darkness either.
Yeah, but there wasn't anything there.
That was the book.
Book. That's it.
Book could have been your red
For the
mail if
red
you were a
mail.
coward.
I mean, I saw that. I just didn't bother after I found blue mail.
Did you ever read the
Yeah.
pedestal?
No, I didn't. I was
Did you start thinking that Ice Rod might be there?
yeah, I was getting a bit worried because if I had checked it, then like swamp and ice, that would have all been go mode instead of full clearing. It would have been really bad if I was full clearing that just to get pedestal.
By the way, I totally jinxed your game because I mentioned Ganon's Tower left side so many times that Ice Palace just decided to have the Ice Rod instead.
Yeah, ice is not really your first priority. Pendant ice. Out
No,
of
it's
logic,
not.
pendant ice.
I mean, okay, how many times during this tournament have we seen Pendant Ice have value? I want to say a lot.
I'm gonna agree with a lot, as annoying as it is. On Obscure's side, by the way, I think he's just a couple spins from done with his Master Sword Silverless.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while. Glan, if you have any other thoughts, feel free to share, by the way.
I want to give props on what was effectively an hour, 50-minute full clear of the game.
Yeah. I suppose, like, when I went to pod, I was kind of thinking at the time that it was a bit awkward because I had no reason, like, there was no justification to get Green Pendant before that if I was going to pod then. Like, I wanted to, like, get a sword first, a new Mire and Green Pendant together, and then go to Eastern pod, but I figured, like, you know, I'm on Death Mountain already. I can just go right there. But had I done Turtle Rock first, I think that would have been the more efficient thing.
I mean, to be honest, in retrospect, Hammer could have been anywhere from your perspective, so it's like it's really one of those choices. So, in the meantime, let me very quickly note ObscureLifeForm has finished with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 58 minutes, and 27 seconds. GG's to him, and I do believe we have him in the room as well.
Yep, GG's, Glan. Well played.
GG.
Okay, Obscure. How do you feel about that seed?
It was an interesting seed for weapons to be so far locked away.
Oh, oh boy. Do you want to know?
Go on, what's the damage?
There were 2 swords in Sphere 1.
Yep.
No way.
One of them was vanilla.
Are you kidding?
Actually, I guess Dark Cross isn't technically Sphere 1. That's my mistake. But there was another one there as well.
It's actually Sphere 4 with how deeply Lamp was locked away.
I quit counting those past 1. So it's either 1 or it's not as far as I care.
Was it 4? Because
Well, you had to get the hook shot to get... Well, okay,
shot
no,
was
you
Sphere
didn't...
1 though, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you didn't need
And so
the
was
hook shot
Pearl.
for the lamp because it was in the bunk chest. So you
Just
only
needed
you had to get the pearl and the lamp, so it's Spear 3.
But yeah, the point is, there were 2 swords in the castle area.
Yeah, that was my fault not checking escape at all. I found the 2 difficult swords to find, but left the easy ones.
I mean, Glan also got the escape swords about an hour in, so you weren't that particularly behind. I was a little bit more shocked to see that you went for, well, attempted to go for catfish instead of mirroring into escape after you did pyramid.
I'm trying to remember when I went to Pyramid Fairy. I had a plan. Like, escape wasn't even on my mind at that point. I think because I found the hammer and the sword, or something like that. But yeah, I had quite a lot to clear, a lot of dungeons. So that's kind of what I was thinking at the time. I was like, I'm just going to quickly check Pyramid and then I'm just going to go and clear some dungeons.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, but that's just because I routed that way and it has bitten me so far quite a few times, is that Pyramid and Hyrule Castle go together, but of course, like, if that's not how you usually do it, then it's not that natural.
Yeah, usually I would do something like that, but I'm trying to remember. I can't really remember like what was happening. I just know I had other things on my mind at the time, and I think it was that after Hammer and finding a sword, I think I had like 3-4 dungeons that I could clear. So escape wasn't even on my mind. I just wanted to start clearing stuff.
Makes perfect sense. How about that, Ice Rod?
Yeah,
And-
nice, tucks away.
And why Ice Palace before Palace Darkness?
It was just a gut feeling.
That's perfectly acceptable. I mean, given how the seat went, it's perfectly logical that Ice Rod would be the worst place possible.
Yeah, I had a feeling something was in Turtle Rock. That's kind of why I went back there after dying to the Lionel. And
On
yeah.
that note, did you know that you could do that clip from the other side? You just literally teleport up on the side that doesn't have a Lionel and transition over.
I did not know that. I should practice that one. Makes better sense to do it that way. Didn't even think of that.
So sorry, I did cut you off there. Go on.
No, that's fine. I was just saying there was a few gut feelings that I went for, like something is going to be in Turtle Rock. But in a way, I think the Lionel actually done me a favor, because then I went and done other things and found Samaria. And yeah, I think if I just found the sword, I think finding that hammer would have been one of my last locations. Probably just before I probably went to Ice Palace, I probably would have found the hammer or something like that. So finding Samaria first, thanks to the Lionel, actually probably done me a favor. And yeah, gut feeling for Ice Palace as well. Ice Rod's been turning up in there quite a bit recently, so I'll give it a go.
It's interesting that your routing did both do you a favor and also a little bit not. If you had gone to Bonk Rocks before ascending to Death Mountain, you would have had the flippers. Would you have considered clipping down to the Waterfall Ferry area to maybe have the Cane of Samaria?
Yeah, true. It's my beginning routing all kind of depends on what's aligned, to be honest. Like if there's something on blind, then not blind, sorry, maze game, because I usually go from the south and then go upwards. So if something's on blind, then I'll go desert and do South Shore. Maze game. If there's something on maze game, then I'll come back down and do desert and South Shore. But if there's nothing, then I'll head up to Hyrule. So I guess there was nothing on maze game, so I just continued going upwards rather than back round.
One other thing that comes into mind, and this is for the both of you guys, if you pick up a bush after screen wrapping in the Dark World on Death Mountain, all you have to do is just jump down and enter Spike Cave and you will lose the bush.
Oh, okay.
That didn't matter for me because I was trying to wrap DMD.
All I'm saying is I saw both of you pick up an invisible bush. Just a thing
Yeah,
kicked
but
away.
like if I went down to Spike Cave, that would ruin DMD. So whatever. I mean, I could have like mirrored an old man, done normal way or something, but no, I couldn't do that. At that point, you just save and win.
So, any closing thoughts from either of you?
No, well played, Glan. I know you've got another match coming up now, haven't you? So good luck with that one.
Yeah, thanks. I hope it's not as garbage as this seed.
Seems like there's been a lot of garbage seeds going around lately.
Turns out none of us actually like Overworld glitches.
Yeah, so far in this tournament, I think my best seed was like a mediocre seed. And the rest sucked.
Overall glitches sounds like it would actually do you a favor, but actually it kind of works against you and it's actually harder, I feel, than normal games.
You know how it works against you? You get that boot start, you get that neat experience of being able to just go anywhere, and you don't want to go back to not doing glitches. It just sucks you right in.
True.
Yeah.
Alright, so as we mentioned, there is going to be a race coming up on this very channel in 22 minutes. It is going to be our very own Glan against Hacksaw. So stay tuned for that. In more Overworld glitches, there's going to be a race Spleeby versus Futon. Haven't been decided on the restream yet, but it is going to happen at 11:30 p.m. tonight, so it's quite a bit away still.
Yeah, that's still about 7 to 7.5 hours out for all of you non-Americans in chat that may or may not want to do time zone conversions on the fly.
And in other rando content, I'm looking to see if we have any ALTTPR League races. Yes, we do. So in other rando content today, we have Team 4K 4th and Forehead versus the Titansmiths. On SpeedGaming 4 is going to be Korek versus SHETG. It is a standard Uncle Assured all dungeon seed. So it's a fairly standard rando. It's going to be happening at 6 p.m., which is I want to say 2 hours from now?
About 2 hours, yeah, just under. And then we also have the community open weekly race for Link to the Past Randomizer on SpeedGaming 5 at 5:30 p.m., which is about an hour and 20 minutes from now.
So if you like some rando for yourself, there's going to be things happening all night.
Yep. And in non-Link to the Past, we have a Super Metroid interactive race at 6 p.m. Eastern, so just under 2 hours now on the main SpeedGaming channel. We also have Final Fantasy 1 Randomizer and Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland at 9 p.m. Eastern, which is just under 5 hours from now. Channels have yet to be decided. and a pair of Zelda 1 randomizer races at 10 p.m. Eastern, about just under 6 hours from now. One will be on the main SpeedGaming channel, the other's restream has yet to be fully decided.
And currently going on in SpeedGaming 2, there is a Final Fantasy 1 randomizer going on, although it's been an hour, so we should be nearing the end of it, but you can still catch that before the next race starts here.
There's also a Super Metroid tournament match that started on SpeedGaming 5 about 10 minutes ago. Your choice whether you want to go check that out or stick around here for Glan vs. Hacksaw.
And that's it for SpeedGaming advertisement. Thank you all for watching us. Don't forget to give our racers Glan and ObscureLifeForm a follow, as well as our tracker, Sammy Mimas. Sorry, I honestly can't pronounce that, but without him we'd be lost. Also would like to thank my co-commentator here, Regaro, and I was Bunny Ame.
And that's going to be a wrap for us. Like we said, feel free to stick around for Glan vs. Hacksaw in about 20 minutes if you want more Overworld Glitches action.